Hi, this is Reg Athwal, and welcome to our channel for another episode on family business experts, where I get a chance to interview an entrepreneur, an expert, someone who can give us their ideas, words of wisdom, some insights that can help us at either a family level, business level, or ideally both. So it's a real pleasure today to have a real expert, a global expert, and I'm going to give a formal introduction before I bring Daniel on the screen. Daniel Priestley started out as an entrepreneur at the age of very young age, 21, and built a multi-billion-dollar event marketing and management business before the tender age of 25. He's a successful entrepreneur, an international speaker, and a best-selling author, as you can see from some of the books on the screen. He's built and sold businesses in Australia, Singapore, and in the UK. Daniel is the founder of Dent, which runs a 9-month growth accelerator program for small to medium-sized enterprises. And he's working with over 500 entrepreneurs on an annual basis, developing their businesses. He works in multiple time zones with offices basically covering all time zones around the world. And he uses also campaigns to help raise up to $100,000 for charities each year as part of his social impact, humanitarian work that he does. And he's also known by many, many entrepreneurs and celebrities and leaders around the world, very passionate about global small business. And he's the author of 4 best-selling books. I know there's another one that I haven't got on the screen, and I believe he's got another couple coming out very, very soon. You can see there the key person of influence, Entrepreneur Revolution, which I can't wait to ask him about, oversubscribed, and the one I haven't read is 24 Assets. So I can't wait, Daniel, to ask you about that. So on that note, welcome to the show, Daniel.
That was a really big introduction. I'm almost excited to meet this person that you speak of.
Yeah, well, he couldn't turn up, so we ended up.
I'll stand in for that amazing introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to waste any time. You know what it's like with viewers. We want to get straight into it. Tell me, with your business journey, your entrepreneurial journey, what would you say are some of the mistakes that you made as part of your journey that we can learn from?
Look, there's been plenty of mistakes. You don't know what you don't know, and in many cases, if you imagine that you're in your business, looking out the front windscreen, and you're driving your business like you're driving a car, and you can kind of only see the turn ahead of you. And when you're first starting out in business, you don't realize there's actually a map. There's a pretty standard journey that unfolds. Right. And the more you understand the map and the more you understand the journey, the faster it is to get from point A to point B. So probably the biggest mistakes that I made were just not understanding a bigger picture of what entrepreneurship looks like, and just kind of going with trends, going with gut feel, going with the short-term decision-making, which was all I knew how to do at the time. Whereas today we're much more of a strategic business, and we have, because we work with so many hundreds of businesses every year, we get to see them at all shapes and sizes, and they unfold incredibly predictably.
And what's the commonality with those? When you're working with like 500 entrepreneurs every year, with the journey that you've gone through and seeing what they do, what's that commonality, that thread that runs all the way through where typically people screw things up? Excuse my language.
Oh, you're really interested in where people screw it up. People screw it up in different ways at different points in the business. Let me zone in on one particularly difficult point in business. So when you build a small successful boutique up to about 12 employees, it behaves like a family. Mm-hmm. And with 12 people on a team, everyone kind of knows everyone else. Everyone knows everyone else's strengths and weaknesses. Right. And it's really easy to know who you should be talking to at any given time. If you've got a challenge or a problem, it's very easy, intuitive even, to just pick up the phone and talk to the right person, or to have a little meeting with someone who's the right person.
That communication is there, isn't it? The frequency of communication.
It bounces and it flows. Strangely, the dynamic changes at 13 people. So between 12 and 13, something shifts. So what happens is that under 12, everyone is one family, one team dynamic. At 13, you split into 2 or 3 teams. Right. And sometimes it can be the sales team versus the ops team versus the admin team. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it can be the first 5 or 6 people who were there, quote unquote, at the beginning, yes, versus the 5 or 6 people who were more recently hired, who feel like they have better qualifications. So there's this dynamic that shifts.
Yeah.
When you get to about 15, 16, 17, 18 people, you discover in many ways that you're too big to be small, too small to be big, and you're not quite a big business. You're not quite a small business. It's an awkward size. We call this we call this being in the desert, and it's kind of like between the small boutique, the tiny little business, and between the kind of more bigger performance business. So it changes again at around 40 people. 40 people tends to have room in there for a leadership team and a board with maybe 3 or 4 operational teams underneath. So suddenly you kind of evolve into a different business. So one of the mistakes I see is that people are succeeding at 12 people and then they just hire 13, 14 without thinking terribly hard about it.
Yeah.
Not knowing that the dynamic will actually change and shift, and you'll need more software.
That's really good. I like that. That's a good insight. And then so based on that's where people make mistakes. With your experience in the programs that you run as accelerators, then what's the one thing that you have to inject to make sure that evolution happens correctly? Because I know of so many businesses, they hit the 1 million mark, 5 million mark, and that's it. They don't go beyond that.
They hit a wall. Yeah. So the difference between a big business and a small business is what I would call P&L thinking versus balance sheet thinking. So if you go into the boardroom of a small business or into a meeting, wouldn't it be a boardroom? It'd be a meeting of a small business. All they talk about is generating leads, generating appointments, making sales. How do we run better marketing? How do we run better campaigns? Which client needs some help? Which client needs some work? Did we drop the ball with a client who's going to leave us? And all of that is what I would call the P&L thinking, the profit and loss, the income and the profitability conversation.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to go into the boardroom of a big company, let's say you went into the boardroom of a $1 billion plus business,
mm-hmm.
there's almost no salespeople, there's no marketing people in the room. Everyone has a background in finance, finance, accounting, or law. And the reason that everyone has a background in finance, accounting, and law is because it's a balance sheet conversation. So big businesses always focus on the balance sheet. They always focus on, if we get the right assets, then we'll make the right income. If we buy the right hotel in the right location, then we'll make plenty of income from that. If we have the right brand strategy, then the income will come. If we develop the right products and we have the right product set, then the income will come. So big businesses think about asset first, income second. Small businesses think about income, just how do we make income? How do we generate leads and make profit? So that is a big difference between smaller businesses and bigger businesses. You have to make a shift between balance sheet thinking and P&L thinking as a fundamental way.
I mean, most of the clients that we work with are family businesses around the world, and typically they're not SMEs. Okay, so but I wanted to learn from you today, and especially for our viewers, because the next gen, is part of the regeneration path. The next gen are looking to incubate a new business or prove to the seniors, hang on, I can also do it. I can also be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So a lot of things that you're mentioning will definitely apply to them. But with the larger businesses, Danny, we have come across cases where someone is asset rich, but cash flow poor.
Yeah. Performance is lacking.
And in your book, Entrepreneur Revolution, maybe you can expand this. You talk about income follows asset, or assets.
Yep.
Not effort. Could you expand on that? Because that's a really good one line.
Yeah, so,
a whole chapter you've got in the book on that.
Yeah. So there's this, there's in the entrepreneurial world, there's a glory around this word called hustle. And it's like, you've got to hustle. Now, if I take a bucket and a sponge and I go out onto the streets and start washing cars like crazy, and I'm hustling, and I'm just washing as many cars as I can, as fast as I can, no matter what I do, I'm still going to make 20 or 30 pounds an hour at best, right? So I'm not going to hustle my way into millions. If, however, I happen to be in a family that owns an amazing hotel, I'm not going to have to hustle at all. There's going to be income that comes in as a result of that hotel. Now, it might be possible to improve that, but ultimately, what sets the tone as to how much income I make? 80% of the income that I'm actually making is the underlying asset. Even even if we look at what people do for income in a job, 80% is the underlying asset, which is their qualification. So if you've got a doctor earns pretty much what a doctor earns, and a dentist earns what a dentist earns, and a gardener earns what a gardener earns.
Right.
Mostly the underlying asset of what they're doing, the actual nature of the work itself, is dictating pretty much 80% baseline of the income itself. So if you want additional income, first you need additional assets, or you need to improve the asset, as essentially performance will fluctuate on top of the asset. So the underlying asset is the most important thing. You have to develop underlying assets. Now, we live in a time at the moment where the underlying asset is actually an intangible digital asset. So most family businesses are getting their head around this. The older generation made their money by owning property.
That's right.
They made their own, land, factories, machinery, equipment, physical things that you could bang your toe on.
That's right.
So the new generation understands intuitively that the new assets are digital. Videos, media, software, organizational culture, systems, processes, brand assets, data assets. So there's a new category of assets that you would call digital assets. And that is where, at the dawn of a new age, a new era, so there was the industrial age, there was before that the agricultural age. The primary asset in the agricultural age was land. The primary asset in the industrial age was a factory or a building, or the ability to organize labor under one roof. The primary asset in the digital age is digital assets like data, brand, media, software. So we're going from a transition from the industrial age into the digital age, and the younger generation are going to have big fights with the older generation about which assets need to be developed and which assets need to be owned, because the older generation has an intuition around property and real estate and factories and machinery and plant and equipment. The younger generation has an intuition around digital assets, and the older generation typically doesn't have a good understanding of digital assets. The younger generation doesn't typically have a good understanding of physical assets.
So do you think there's an opportunity, Daniel, where you could have a hybrid version? It's a bit like Amazon buying supermarkets and grocery shops. Yeah. Is the future about integration between these two? Because it's not just about digital, is it? And data.
No, there's definitely integration. If you own physical assets, then you have to adorn them with digital assets. If you own a hotel, the thing that's going to drive the performance of the hotel is the fact that it has great video content, image content, the fact that it has an amazing database of the right people who come back and stay, and all their preferences are logged in a database. So the thing that is going to drive the most performance against a physical asset is now the new digital assets. So you almost have to put the wrapper around those physical assets to make sure that they are wrapped up in digital assets. Of course, physical assets have a place, but what's happening to most physical assets is they're becoming incredibly commoditized, that all they can do is compete on price unless they have the digital assets as well.
That makes sense. A bit like what we're doing now. I mean, I've been motivated since September last year, but I'm kicking myself, Daniel, because I originally started creating content online back in 2006.
Yeah.
But stopped around early 2008. And I kick myself now thinking, why did I not carry on?
Well, digital
assets.
Yeah, digital assets. The asset that we're recording this video right now, and just as the minute that you upload this, then you've created something that transcends time, space, and wear and tear. So it has three superpowers. As upon upload, it has three superpowers. The first superpower is time. So it will be uploaded at the particular time you upload it, and it'll be available in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years. It'll be somewhere on the internet, so it will transcend time. If it's still relevant, if it's still valuable, the time
scale. When we've got grey hair or no hair, Daniel, yeah?
Exactly. We'll still be looking great in this video. And then it transcends space. So the minute you upload it into Dubai, it's also available in Boston, in Brisbane, in Bristol. It's available all over the world instantaneously. And then it transcends wear and tear, which means 1,000 people could watch it or 100,000 people could watch it, and the quality remains the same. So digital assets have these three superpowers, transcending time, space, and wear and tear. And those superpowers genuinely give a business superpowers. It means that the business suddenly opens up to new markets across time, space, and
Brilliant.
with longevity.
Love it, love it. So I'm going to move into some other areas. One of the things in your book, Entrepreneur Revolution, you've got about creating your ecosystem.
Yeah.
And I think this is so relevant in today's market, especially with larger companies as well, where they've got one product, but they're not looking at the ecosystem. So could you expand on, when you work with entrepreneurs, how do you build out the ecosystem? And then how do you use that to grow the business?
Yeah, a key idea is that products and services don't make money. Product and service ecosystems make money. So I'll give you an example for me. I run a business accelerator company, but we also own our own book publishing, our own IT services, and our own film production business. Mm-hmm. Now, those businesses operate completely independently. They have their own, brands and websites and teams, and they have their own offices even. So we've got 12 people up in the Milton Keynes office doing digital. We've got 6 people over in the film production business as the core team for the film production. Mm-hmm. So we completely different businesses. However, as part of an ecosystem, mm-hmm. when one of the IT company clients says we need some video, we have that within the group, and one product flows into the next product, flows into the next product. Mm-hmm. Now, independently, all of these businesses would probably compete on price. They would be a little bit marginalized in their industry, and yet as a group, as an ecosystem, they're all really profitable. We share certain resources. We share certain, when I host a really big event with Dent, our business accelerator business, mm-hmm. it's always sponsored by, and we have actual booths around the foyer with all the other businesses. So certain things like that give each of the businesses an edge.
So you're a bit like Etihad with Manchester City, then. And then it's also owned by the Abu Dhabi royal family. It's all integrated, isn't it? It's all coming from the same place.
Part of that ecosystem, and it's the ecosystem that makes the money. Another example would be my books. So some people would say, "Oh, do you write books because you want to make money from books?" And I'd say, "Well, yes, but not the way that you think." So I don't try and write books because I want book royalties. I'm not thinking about making £1 per book. I'm thinking about the relationship that will generate at scale, so that someone on the other side of the world reads a book and then says, I want to discover more about the business. So I don't think of books as a profit generating product. I think of books as a relationship generating product, and all part of the ecosystem. So if you take the books out and say, the books are making money, I want to go and do that separately, well, you've missed the point. They're not meant to be separate. They're meant to be part of an overall ecosystem of business. You might say, well, why on earth do you spend 20 or 30 grand a year just putting out free videos on YouTube? Right? That makes no money at all. Are you crazy? And it's like, well, I'm not crazy. I'm trying to create an ecosystem that has a steady stream of people coming through.
I'm going to quote you from Oversubscribed to your book. So I was going to ask you about this. You've got here, give away ideas, but charge for the implementation.
Yeah, great philosophy for most businesses is share the light bulb moment, share the philosophy, share the idea, share the strategy, and then people can come to you for the implementation.
And in a way, your books are doing that, aren't they? Because
the books do that, the podcasts, the videos, all of those are different ways to just share ideas openly. And then people say, okay, well, I want to implement that idea. How do I do it? Well, I'll come and work with one of the businesses.
Brilliant. So how many books have you sold now in total? How many people have got a copy?
Well, I know that KPI alone is north of 100,000. The other ones are probably around 50,000. KPI is probably the biggest one. Key person of influence is the biggest one. And then the others are probably around, so it's probably, 200,000, maybe 250,000.
That's brilliant. And how are you managing to do this? I mean, you're churning out, a best-selling book every couple of years almost, probably one a year now.
It's about every 2 years. The new one that's coming out is called How to Raise Entrepreneurial Kids, which is probably relevant to your people. And it's an interesting book because in that book, we actually myself and my co-author put out a call for parents to share stories of how they have raised an entrepreneurial kid. So one little thing that they did that helps to raise an entrepreneurial kid. So the book is actually full of 200 stories of parents with some chapters in there from me explaining the key ideas that come out of that. But it's one of those kind of books that you'll be able to open up and just have a look at and say, oh, that's a good idea. I'll do that with my kids as well.
Well, I wish I was involved at the early stage of that project. I could have contributed, because there's another video on our channel which got uploaded a few days ago called Fire in Your Belly, which was off the back of one of our clients saying, look, I've got some young kids, and I'm trying to think, will they have the same fire in the belly that I've had to build the business?
I think most successful parents worry about that. That's one of the hardest things to know how to educate. If you grow up in an environment that's more scarce, more difficult, less abundant, you tend to have a real fire to go out there and get stuff and make stuff happen. Look, in the book, there are certain stories that are interesting that relate to fire in the belly. One of those stories is actually exposing kids to some of the world's bigger problems. So, making sure that children of wealthy families have the opportunity to spend a day or two walking through the slums in India and actually, connecting with people who live very different lives. Yes. Make sure that they go and have a look in Alaska, where they're chopping down 1,000-year-old trees and turning it into pulp. And seeing that the world is full of big problems that need solving, and that as a young person in a wealthy family, there's an opportunity that very few people have to go out and tackle some of the big problems in the world. So that can also be a great way to create fire in the belly. Yeah,
it's great. And some of the things to add to that, Daniel, would be, from our experiences of working with many family businesses, is a common theme we've seen with over 100 is where the seniors are taking the grandchildren and holding their hand and showing them the manufacturing plant, or they're sitting in the executive office, or they're sitting in the corner scribbling away, pretending to be in a board meeting. But these stories, especially before the age of 7, has an impact on that child and their subconscious, going, wow, I want to be part of this in the future.
Yeah. It's been fascinating to see some of the ways that people are raising entrepreneurial children. But look, I write books because for me personally, it's how I process my thinking. It's an easy way for me to capture stories, capture my own thinking, and improve my own thinking. So it's just been almost a hobby. Fortunately, it's a good value hobby to have.
Yeah, it's good. We'll keep it up. So one of the other things here I had was around niches, or micro niches, or niches, as some people refer to. Why is that important to grow your business?
Well, throughout all of history, we have started businesses based on a niche, or a niche, which is a geographical niche. So if you think about a business that starts out as a local corner store, a grocery store, then realistically, it has a niche, which is a 1 mile radius of that store. And the reason that it's valuable is because it's geographically close. But as we move into a digital landscape, we move into a period of time where every business can be a global business on day one of launching. So you have to come up with a psychological niche. You have to come up with you basically have to say, we do management consulting for scuba diving businesses. And it's that ability to start with something specific where people go, okay, you're not the best in the world at all management consulting, but you're best in the world at management consulting for scuba diving businesses. So we'll pay attention to that. Because if you're too general, it's like having a general store that's just a little bit too far away. Yes. So if you have a convenience store that's not convenient, if you have a grocery store that's 6-7 miles away, then not many people are going to come to that because it's just not geographically close to them. If you have a management consulting that can kind of do everything and anything for anyone, it just feels that little bit of distance away, that it's not quite right. Whereas as soon as you have a niche, you go and find that there's, suddenly you say, okay, well, we do management consulting for scuba diving. It's like, well, there's, 15,000 scuba diving businesses that are going to be very interested in that. You could then expand the niche into, in the same way that you open up new general stores and all of that sort of stuff, you make a bigger store. You could then say, okay, we do management consulting for sporting or sailing, businesses, or, any water sports business. You can then open up to all sorts of different ways. So it's not about it's not about constraining yourself in terms of a niche is not a place that you finish. It's a place that you start. So
so does this fit in with one of your other principles, which is then you end up creating your own market? Yeah. something that you mentioned in being, oversubscribed. You essentially create your own market. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, similar principle, slightly nuanced. So creating your own market is essentially when there are people who know you, like you, and trust you, and they really connect with you. They become part of your market, not the general market. So there's research into this that says when someone spends 7 hours, 11 interactions, or visits you in 4 different locations, they actually become psychologically more of a friend than a stranger or an acquaintance. So they move into a different bucket. So if you and I sat next to each other on a 7-hour flight and we were talking away for 7 hours, by the end of that flight, we would feel a sense of we should connect, we should make sure that we don't lose touch. We would exchange details and all of those sorts of things. Psychologically, we started the flight as strangers and we end the flight as friends. So that is actually a phenomenon where the human brain is basing that on 7 hours worth of contact. It happens as well if we connect 11 times or if we connect on 4 locations. That's the research, that's the science. So when you ask people, what will your next laptop purchase be or your next mobile phone purchase be, there's a group of people who are Apple buyers and they say, well, it'll be definitely an iPhone. It'll be iPhone 12 or it'll be 12X or whatever, 12S. But it'll definitely be an iPhone. And you say, well, are you going to have a look at a Samsung? Are you going to have a look at a Huawei phone? No, I'm not going to even look. It's like, are you aware that they're very similar? Yes, I'm aware that they're very similar. Are you aware that they do all the same things? Yes, I'm aware that they do all the same things. Well, why wouldn't you even look? It's like, because I buy Apple products. So Apple has its own buyers. It has its own people.
A tremendous loyalty towards that brand has been built. Yeah.
And a huge part of that, actually, a big part of that goes back to the Steve Jobs days, where Steve Jobs, people watched his videos, they watched his product launches, they felt a sense of connection to Steve Jobs. And actually, as a result of Steve Jobs being the first person to put his face on the business, we kind of went on a journey with Steve Jobs and got excited by the idea of being loyal to that brand.
Can I ask you, linking that to the digital world, 7, 11, and 4, how's that apply?
Well, it happens at scale. So 7 hours, if someone watches 7 hours worth of your YouTube videos or listens to 7 hours of your podcasts, that triggers a connection to the person. If someone watches 11 good pieces of content or 11, they connect with you on social media and interact with you 11 times, that's moving you into that category. And if someone follows you on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and on Facebook, that's 4 locations. In fact, the Steve Jobs example is a digital example in the sense that I never met Steve Jobs personally, but I felt like I knew him because I watched all the videos.
Yeah, that's powerful. So what are you seeing changing with business models now with the pandemic situation in 2020? And, are you optimistic about 2020 to 25? Are you a bit nervous? Is there a bit of fear? What about all the entrepreneurs that you're working with? What's the pulse right now? What are people feeling? What are they thinking?
So the pulse is that you're polarized. So you're either super excited about the future. Some businesses are sitting there going, wow, my opportunities just opened up in a big way. And then the polar opposite is, wow, my business just got shut down and I cannot even imagine how it's going to come back. So there's a real polarity. It's almost like a wave where some people are surfing the wave and having a great time surfing, and some people got dumped by the wave and they're not having a good time at all. Right. But there's nothing in between at the moment. So what's happening? There are some big trends, which is I'm noticing that right up until COVID-19, people were very concerned about opening up in cities and having city locations, being involved in big cities, being part of London, being part of New York, being part of San Francisco. So it was very much city driven. Get yourself to a big city. I've just seen a miraculous shift in a matter of months to a mindset towards time zones. So rather than being part of a big city, it's being part of a time zone. So people are saying, okay, our business, because it's digital, we can serve anyone on this time zone. If we're based in London, well, there's no real reason why we can't work with South Africa, because it's roughly the same time zone. So I'm seeing that there's a real shift from cities to time zones. I predict that people will move out of big cities and move on to nicer properties with bigger back gardens and bigger homes and bigger home offices. And they, I think the trend towards everyone moving into a major urban city and getting a tiny little flat, is done. People realize that they don't want to live like that because they've been locked into a house like that.
But also, if talent is working remotely and used to it, and they're being more productive, even though there's a whole, people are talking about, are you really more productive or not? But my team have been more productive. So let's say they're more productive, but you're thinking, hang on, well, we don't need HQ anymore.
Yeah.
And talent could be anywhere in the world.
Up until COVID, people had this view that, okay, we could work remotely 1 day per week, but ultimately we still need to be in the office most of the time. And then over the last 3 months, people have said, well, we've done every meeting over Zoom now, so we can have great team meetings without ever seeing each other. Not at all. It's kind of like if the government said that everyone has to wear roller skates for the next 3 months. Initially, we would say, oh, I hate wearing roller skates, or I only like to wear roller skates once per month. And then at the end of the 3 months, it's like, roller skates are no big deal. I'm confident I can use them. I don't even think twice. I just put my roller skates on in the morning and go for a roller skate. Because if you had to do it for 3 months, you have to build a habit around it.
Yes.
3 months is a very, very powerful habit forming time.
Yep.
So people form habits in, I think the research says 21 days and then 66 days. So if you do something for 21 days in a row, it's quite it makes it more of a habit. If you do it for 66 days, you actually end up with a
Just
real
to let
habit.
you know, Daniel, we did the research ourselves 8 years ago with different.
Interesting.
Brands. So we've got something called the rule of 63.
Is it 63 days?
No, for us, because we did our own research. So we're very close to the 66, that's for sure. But you're absolutely spot on, because the first 21-day cycle is just the change process.
Breaking the old habit.
The second 21-day cycle is habit building, and then the last 21 is real transformation.
Amazing. That makes a lot of sense around the 63. So what's great about that is that, or what's interesting is that lockdown has now been more than 63 days.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's actually going to be quite difficult to get people out of the habit of working from home. So even if every business was said, okay, there's no more lockdown, as of today, you can go back to work the way you used to, people won't. They're in the habit of getting up and working from home and doing things in a completely different way. They're on a different sleeping pattern for a lot of people.
But it does depend on the business as well, Daniel, because there'll be many companies where workers are required for the manufacturing plant and so on. Maybe they're not in the service industry.
Opening a restaurant, opening a gym.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so
very hard to do hair salons on Zoom.
Yeah. So what other tips can you give, Daniel, when people are dealing with some of these challenges right now with the pandemic, and we're seeing spikes as well coming back. We're not sure where this is going for the rest of 2020 into 2021.
Yeah, historically, these types of coronaviruses all throughout history have always seen a second wave, a second spike. That it spikes pretty heavily in colder times. So winter tends to be the spike, and then it cleans up in summer, and then it re-spikes in winter, autumn. Those sorts of things happen. So there's almost always a second wave, and we should probably, if we're running our businesses, we should plan for the worst and hope for the best. But
and what would be your top 3 tips for any business right now, based on all the research you've done and what's happening with all of your accelerator?
So the top tip is embrace change and stop thinking about going back to the way things were, right? So every 10 years, life changes and the world moves on in some way. So in the 90s, it was all about getting a PC, personal computing. In the 2000s, it was all about getting online, getting internet. In the 2010s, it was mobile computing and utilizing 4G and cloud computing. And in the 2020s, it's going to be different again. You've got 5G, AI, machine learning. voice to text, a lot of game-changing technologies coming. So one way or another, whether it's COVID or whether it's technological disruption, one way or another, the world is not going back the way that it was. So you have to reverse engineer the future, not forward engineer the past. And you have to get over the idea that we can somehow put the pieces back together the way that it used to be, done. This is a transformational time in history, and you've got to reverse engineer the future vision, not forward engineer the past, what you used to do. Second tip would be establish a key person of influence, a spokesperson. So a key person of influence is someone who is the recognized face of the brand, someone who can be on video, on a podcast, someone who is the face of the company. And it's really important to do this because all of social media is based around people. It's called social media for a reason. It's not called brand media. It's called social media. So it's very, very difficult to build a faceless brand. If you have a look at Jessica Alba has 18 million followers on Instagram. Her company, Honest, has 1 million. Richard Branson's got 14 million followers. Virgin only has a few 100,000. So people want to connect with a person. They want to connect with a face. Tesla benefits a massive amount from Elon Musk. Porsche is a much older, more established brand. It's worth 1/10 of Tesla. Its market capitalization is 10%. So
does this link in, Daniel, with one of the things that you mentioned about think mobile and media first, or is that a different principle?
It's similar. Think mobile and media first is a principle that basically says the first experience people are going to have with you is on their mobile phone. So if I said to you right now, I'm interested in buying this guitar, right? Here's this really cool guitar I've seen. It's a Fender Stratocaster new guitar. There's a good chance that if you said to me, "Oh, tell me about it," I would say, "Let me send you a link on WhatsApp." Right. And you're going to grab that link on WhatsApp. And you're going to have a look on your mobile phone. Absolutely. And the first experience that you're going to have, or if you said to me, "Daniel, what car should I buy?" And I say, "Oh, check out this new Tesla model that's coming out. I'll send you a link." The first experience you're probably going to have is on your mobile phone. Maybe it's going to be on Instagram or Facebook. Something like 75% of all the traffic is happening on mobile phones now. So you have to almost pretend that the front desk of your company is the mobile phone. If you're not building an experience that is mobile first, yes, you're basically, it's like having a terrible front desk experience at a hotel.
That's a great analogy. And by the way, do you own one of those guitars?
I'm actually in the process of buying a brand new Fender Stratocaster at the moment. There's a
because that was a very detailed example.
I know. Before we were speaking, I was looking at this beautiful Fender Stratocaster that is in a color called Cobra Blue. So I'm buying a Cobra Blue guitar.
So I know we've got limited time today. I want to ask you a few things, and I want to talk a bit more about Dent and what you do, so people can reach out to you. So another thing you've got is turn your clients into celebrities. Why is that?
Well, because if you think about every client, on average, has something like 100 to 1,000 social media contacts. So they have their own following. It used to be, prior to social media, it used to be that if someone really loved what you did, they could probably tell, maybe if they really put an effort into it, they could tell 10 to 15 people. Whereas pretty effortlessly now, people can tell 1,500 people, right. 150 to 1,500 people pretty easily. So if someone's having a great time at a restaurant, they're able to photograph their food and put it on Instagram. If they're having an amazing time, they could do a Facebook Live. So if you treat your clients really well and you actually send them stuff and you create experiences for them that are shareable experiences, it's kind of like you look at the Academy Awards. What do? Behind the scenes, they really wine and dine the celebrities and they give them a gift bag and there's all these kind of things because the celebrities have got reach. Well, the truth is that your customers have reach now. So if you treat your customers and put them on a pedestal and make them the star of the show, then people say, well, I want to be like that. I want to be like that customer as well.
There's so much in your books, honestly. By the way, everyone, get to Amazon, get to a local bookshop. Make sure you get all of Daniel's books because they're packed full of great content. How about this one? People buy what others want to buy.
Yeah. So most businesses forget this. They think that people buy what others want to sell. So I've got this bottle,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna, please will you buy it? Here, look at it. And they shove it in front of you, and they're trying to get you to buy this damn thing. And when companies really take off is when they acknowledge that people buy what others want to buy, not what others want to sell. So rather than showcasing how much you want to sell something, you've got to showcase how much other people are buying it. If you show that the water bottle is being used by really cool, trendy people and that they're buying it, if you show that it's constantly sold out, it's actually one of the best marketing you can have for a product is that it's hardly available, that there's only 3 left and then it's gone. People love to buy the thing that's sold out. They're so disappointed that they can't get one. They join the waiting list for 3 months to get it. And there's like 10 other suppliers saying, we can do that too.
Would you agree? I mean, it makes me cringe a little bit. There's a fine line between BS and being authentic.
Yeah, fake scarcity. I'm not talking about fake scarcity.
Yeah.
I'm talking about just making sure that when you're trying to tell people about what you do, you're not pushing it on them. Sometimes it's better rather than saying, here's what we do and all the benefits. It's far better to say, have a look at this video of one of our clients who bought from us and had a great experience. So that shows people, oh, okay, this is what other people are buying. So demonstrating and showing the effect or the impact of other people who have bought is more powerful than demonstrating the impact of how much I want to sell the thing.
Yeah, that's good. That's really, really good. Wow. Okay, what have I got left? Essence of Success from one of your first books was, you talk about luck, reputation, and vitality. What does that mean? Why are these 3 important?
Well, it's the stuff that people rarely talk about. So everyone talks about hard work. Hard work is nonsense because every taxi driver works long hours, and every chef in a kitchen. My goodness, if you want to see hardworking people, have a look at a chef who starts at 11 o'clock in the morning, does the lunch, and then goes through till 11 o'clock at night after the dinner rush. 12 hours a day, every single day, working really, really hard, earning very, very average income. So hard work is pretty nonsense. Being highly intelligent is pretty nonsense. Go and have a look at some PhDs at the local university. Some of them have got 2 or 3 PhDs and they're not earning all that great amount of money, or they're not super successful. So the stuff that I talk about that is actually very important is luck. Everyone's got a lucky break. You were born at the right time, at the right place, in the right family. In many cases, that's lucky. In many cases, I'm reading a biography at the moment of Michael Caine, the famous actor. Michael Caine, the famous actor. He talks about his friend Sean Connery being spotted in a gym at the exact right moment that a movie producer was trying to find people who looked like they could be sailors. And he saw Sean Connery in the gym, and it was just this lucky moment that led to Sean Connery.
When you talk about luck, I mean, there's many books. I think I've got one in my library about the luck factor. But do you attract it? Is it a mindset? Is it focus on it? Is it awareness? Is it being nimble that this is going to show up?
It's not, everyone wants a recipe, and it's like, first do this, then do this, then do this. Luck is a little bit different. You have to trust that luck will show up, but you have to go and throw yourself out there in harm's way, in luck's way. So there are lucky places and unlucky places. There are lucky behaviors and unlucky behaviors. Now, I could tell you that it's luckier to go out to a networking function with successful people than sit at home watching Netflix. Now, but that doesn't guarantee that anything's going to happen if you go out tonight and meet some successful people and have a great conversation with them. It might just be a great conversation and that's it. And there's no lucky break that happens.
Yeah.
But there's definitely, there are places that are luckier than other places, and you need to spend time in places that are luckier. There are people that are luckier than other people. So there are definitely people who are unlucky. They attract drama around them all the time. They attract negative circumstances. And if you hang around with unlucky people, it rubs off. There are also people who always fall on their feet. They're just lucky people. And if you hang around with lucky people, luck rubs off on you as well. I know that's crazy. I know it's simple. It's a very well-known concept in Asia, but less so in Europe.
There's a lot of research done on this. People talk about, you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with and who influences you. Right. So all of you out. Okay. Did you hear that message? Out.
Everyone out. Yeah.
You know, get the new people in. Come on.
Yeah.
But you're
There's
right.
also, there's lucky conversations and unlucky conversations. So if you have a conversation about gossip and drama
Mm,
and, bickering and bitching about the world, that's
sure.
an unlucky conversation. It leads to drama and negativity. If you have a conversation about opportunity and possibility and the future and what might happen and trends, that's a much luckier conversation. So when I talk about luck, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that being in the right place with the right people, having the right conversation tends to lead to better life.
I think that's a great mindset, and especially with a crisis or challenges. I mean, we've done research with family businesses that have been around for 200, 300, 400 years. They've been through every crisis.
Yeah, they've seen it
Um,
all before.
but they have got that mindset, which is, hey, we're going to get through this.
Yeah,
That's
we'll be
fine. What's
lucky.
next?
We'll spot
So
we don't know what it is, but we'll spot the next thing.
exactly. What about reputation then? How do you build great reputation? That's your second
Okay,
one.
so reputation is more important than ever because with the digital landscape, everything is cataloged and everything can go viral. Recently, we just saw, a gentleman who spent decades of his life building up a business called CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
And then in one tweet and one stupid comment, he lost the support of his entire customer base and his team. He's now had to sell the business. He's out of the business. Now he might have just been crossing the road, or he might have thought that he was saying was funny. I'm a dad, right? I've got 3 kids under 6 years old. I say stupid stuff all the time, trying to be funny and silly and entertain them. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. Some of it's stupid, right? I say dad jokes that aren't funny.
Yeah.
He might have just been saying something that he thought was funny and he thought was appropriate, but it was inappropriate. And then, it's too late. He tweets it out to his followers, and then suddenly the whole business comes crashing down. So you have to protect your reputation as a big asset, because it used to be that if you did something stupid, only a small number of people would know about that. Today, if you do something stupid and it gets caught on camera and it ends up on YouTube, that's going to haunt you for 10 years. So you've got to be very, very careful. If you get seen saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, that can massively damage the impact.
Really good. And I'm glad you said that, because when we do family constitutions and charters with family businesses, there's a new policy that's coming up frequently now, which is around the social media policy for the whole family.
Yeah, and it should be, because you can bring down the whole family reputation and name with an unsavory view. The other thing too is you've got to learn how to stay in your lane. Social media really wants you to comment on every issue. It really wants you to, social media, the engines, the algorithms are fueled with outrage. And what they really want is for you to kind of weigh in on everything politically and socially. And, people need to have the discipline to just stay in their lane a little bit, not necessarily, you don't have to get into every fight.
Yeah, exactly. And almost to a point where people have got overload right now, information overload, media overload, haven't they?
You lose your focus. There's a new drama every week, and it's very easy to lose your focus.
Right, here's one from Entrepreneur Revolution for you, reminding you of all of your own content here, Daniel. So,
I have to remember, I needed to study up on this.
So one of them was around challenges. You said, make 3 calls. I really like this one. Could you expand on that? Make your 3 calls.
It's a very practical piece of advice that I was given when I was a teenager by a mentor. And he said, when you've got an idea and you've got the spark of inspiration, at the moment that you've got a spark of inspiration, make 3 phone calls. Not 3 phone calls to friends or family, 3 phone calls to see if it's possible. So, Richard Branson had an idea about starting an airline, and he picked up the phone and he literally rang Boeing. And he said, how much is it to rent a jet or to lease an airplane, a 747? And they said, oh, well, we'll put you through to the department and we'll start talking about it. In fact, we're willing to fund it. Mm-hmm. And before too long, he makes a few phone calls and suddenly it becomes feasible to be leasing a 747 airplane. That seems like a crazy thing to do. And yet a phone call or 2 later, and it's not as crazy as he thought. I personally had an idea when I was 18 to start running some nightclub parties for teenagers in the school holidays. And I rang McDonald's and I said, can we promote this to your crew? I rang the radio station. Can we get some sponsorship? I rang the venue, and they gave us a free venue on a Tuesday night if we paid for the security and the bar staff. So within 3 phone calls, we actually had a radio sponsor who was giving us $4,000 worth of advertising. So the idea is, when the spark of inspiration hits, just get out there and actually make some phone calls to see if it's feasible.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong in someone saying no, but people have that fear of rejection, don't they? So they don't do it.
Or to even just pick up the phone and say, hey, look, I've had a crazy idea that I know nothing about, and I'm exploring it. Can I ask you, what's involved in doing this particular thing?
Exactly. So for those of you still around watching this, I hope you're getting lots of value. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. Go to the description area. You'll find all the details for Daniel and his companies, so you can connect with him. So briefly, Daniel, tell us about Dent and this program. What's your business model? If you don't mind me asking, what's the investment for someone to be part of your programs? How does it work?
Yeah, so a business accelerator is a high-performance environment for entrepreneurs. If you think about the idea that environment dictates performance, if I put you through a boot camp, a fitness boot camp, and every single day we had 50, 60 people in a cohort trying to get fit together, and there were fitness people leading it, suddenly that environment takes over and you can't help but get up early and do the work and all this sort of stuff. So we are creatures of environment. So what I discovered 10 years ago was that there were these things called accelerators in Silicon Valley, where they would get 22-year-old coders, people who are really kind of on the leading edge of technology. They'd put them into a cohort of 50 to 60 at a time, and they'd get them to come up with a new piece of technology, and they'd do these regular hackathons. They would share best practices with them. They'd show them how to build a product and a brand and all this sort of stuff. And they'd get them all mixing together. And out of it came multiple multi-billion-dollar unicorns. And I became fascinated with these accelerator environments, but I wondered, why is there no accelerator environment for traditional entrepreneurs and family businesses? And, if you're not a 22-year-old who can code, if you don't have a master's degree from Stanford University and a best friend who is extremely talented data analyst, you can't join this damn thing. So, 4,000 people apply for 40 spots. So I thought to myself, I wonder what it would be like to build an accelerator for people who've got 15 years experience in business or more, people who have, got a professional qualification, but not a technology qualification. So 10 years ago, I started building an accelerator for those types of people. And we've basically become a global business. We've worked with over 3,000 companies now. In an accelerator for young tech entrepreneurs, it's normally funded by billionaires who want a percentage of the business. They normally take between 7 and 30% of the business for that, for the accelerator environment. We've made it super simple for established businesses. They pay £7,000, about $10,000 US.
Yes.
And they can get 12 months of that environment. We have 50 people on a cohort. So it covers if everyone puts 10 grand in, it covers the whole cost of putting together an amazing 12-month program for the whole group. There's buy-in, so that you feel a sense of, commitment to the process because you've bought into it. And
what's the frequency? What's the frequency of bringing the cohort together?
Every 2 weeks, we do a 3.5-hour session.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's quite intense. For 12 months, that's actually just one cornerstone. There's also a monthly accountability meeting. There's also hero sessions that we do with people, super top people.
So would you say it's a combination of, there could be people in the program where they're learning and growing their own business, but you're also potentially generating new ventures with members?
Normally the most well-known accelerator is the Key Person of Influence Accelerator, and that is for established businesses. So this is a business that has at least, when I say established, you've got to have at least 100,000 of existing revenue. I know for your clients that doesn't mean established at all, but in the startup space, pre-revenue, mostly they are pre-revenue, no money at all startups. We work with companies that have got a minimum of 100,000 of existing revenue for that product or idea. And then our typical client is sort of high 6 figures. So most of our clients would be 500,000 to $1 million of existing revenue. And we have plenty of clients that are kind of running multi-million-pound businesses as well. But we're very much, the majority of our clients sit between the 200,000 and the 2 million revenue existing.
Yes.
And we normally don't take on people with a brand new idea unless they've got a really great background in that space and they're kind of pivoting something forward.
And
Or
would there be
spinning
a
something.
limit because with your expertise and time, unless you've got clones of Daniel with different cohorts, do you limit yourself to so many entrepreneurs in a year
So
or so many
we
groups?
have globally, we have over 20 mentors on the team, who each teach one of the key modules in the program. So it's not me. I only do a few bits here and there. But the cohorts are limited. Normally we get 2,000 to 3,000 people fill in an online scorecard in order for us to choose 60 that we want to work with. So it's about 2% of people, 2 to 3% of people who fill in a scorecard actually come through and work with us.
Wow. Love the model. I think it's fantastic. And my head's buzzing with how I can support it, because at the bottom of the pyramid in the family business space, people that you're dealing with are the majority. We call them the tier 3 family businesses.
Yeah.
Family SME space.
Yeah.
Two members together, probably running $1 million type business.
Yeah.
And they don't, it's great to hear that you're doing this, because they don't have these type of opportunities. Normally,
it's a great one. It's also really great for the up and comer. So in a second or third generation, you've got sort of that younger person who has to prove themselves and build their credibility. They have to be able to, win over people based on their results. And one of the great things we've helped a number of family businesses to do is to get that younger person in the family to put some results on their belt, to build their credibility, to build their authority. And actually that's a really powerful way, because they get to step outside of the family into a different environment where they get to put some real runs on the board separately from the family.
And then once somebody graduates from the accelerator program, I'm sure you've got hundreds of these. What happens to them after that?
So we run a program called Better Every Quarter. It's a scaled back version that is about maintaining a sustainable pace. The first 12 months that we work with people is unsustainable. It's something you could really only do it for 12 months because it's a sprint. It's it's very intensive, very, very intensive, those first 12 months that we work with people. That's and great. You can't live like that. You can get a great breakthrough like that, but we then have a program that is more of a quarterly program that just goes on and on.
So there's a continuity program, which is good, because you need that, don't you? Everyone needs an ongoing coach or a mentor. You've got to have something.
We have 3 focuses ongoing, which is team and talent, like getting a good team together, building assets, and driving performance. So team, assets, and performance, and that becomes the quarterly focus and the quarterly.
So let's close on. You mentioned the word assets. The book that was recently published, 24 Assets.
Yeah.
I'm going to squeeze one more thing from you, and we're done. Daniel, is from 24 Assets. Can you tell us one asset out of the 24?
Yeah.
Briefly, of that could make the most impact to a business, or really important to understand.
At the moment, the one that I'm seeing the most bang for buck is data. So data assets is essentially your ability to capture very unique data. Let me share with you a quick story on that. The US presidential election is normally a great place for you to see the most cutting edge marketing techniques. Mm-hmm. FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, did the fireside chat, and that led people into radio. JFK did televised debates, and that led people into television marketing. Obama did social media engagement, that led people into the social media age. Donald Trump actually did data. So his campaign was built around this kind of cheeky thing called Cambridge Analytica, mm-hmm. And it was a data analytics driven campaign. So data analytics is the next big thing. And we know that because the US presidential election almost tells us what is the next big thing. So what most businesses are not doing is they're not sucking in lots of data and analyzing that data and coming up with very good insights about that. The companies that do the best in the year 2020 or the 2020s, the decade of the 2020s, will actually be the companies that generate and suck in the most unique data, analyze it, and generate the most valuable insights. Wow. It can be as simple as having a quiz or a scorecard. We use a technology called scoreapp.com. ScoreApp builds scorecards and data gathering technologies, data gathering quizzes, and then people fill in the quiz, and then the business suddenly has proprietary data. So data is a very powerful asset, but most people don't know how to use it. It needs to be better understood.
Wow. So on that note, Daniel, I want to thank you so much. Hopefully the viewers are happy and inspired, and you left them with some great ideas and insights. Again, go down to the description area. Make sure you buy Daniel's books, okay?
We covered a lot. It was great.
We covered a lot, and I hope to do this again when your next book comes out, because I'm very passionate about that area, about nurturing the next generation and giving them good confidence, getting them on the right path. So look forward to having another conversation, and thank you, Daniel. Keep doing what you're doing. God bless you.
Reg, thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Thank you.